The urban forest, a human creation while at the same time a natural system. Collectively, as a resource, trees in the city work hard for us. They keep our streets cool from the summer sun. They keep our rivers clean from sediment and contaminants. And they promote a sense of interconnectedness with nature. We connect to trees in the urban landscape in many of the same ways we connect with forests in the wild. They are bigger than we are. They outlive us. They define the place we call home. They take us back in time. They pull us forward into the future.
The urban forest is everything in the urban environment that is a part of the forest, which is, in my mind, everything. The trees are the big charismatic part of the forest, but it's all of us. It's all of the people, it's all of the underbrush, it's the buildings and the bridges. Portlanders are very fortunate to live in a place like Portland where we have such strong and such proactive urban forestry practices. Not only are they here for us to look at and enjoy, they're also here providing significant environmental benefit. So our communities are more livable, our city is more beautiful.
One of the things I'd like folks to think of in terms of the urban forest is the fact that it's theirs. You know, there are a lot of city assets that belong to them, but very hard to put your arms around. They own the sewer grates, everything between the sidewalks and the curbs. It's very hard to put your arms around and just let people realize that the urban forest is theirs.
It's important for people to recognize that Portland's great forest is due to the planning of the people who came before us in large part. This was Stumptown originally, when the Europeans came along and cut down a lot of the trees in this area. And early on, some folks decided that they wanted an urban forest, and they planted a lot of trees, and they also put some plans for parks and greenways in place and regulations in place that have enabled us to have the big trees that we have today. If that hadn't happened, we very well might still be Stumptown, and that would be a very different city than we have today.
The urban forest brings about social and natural consequences that differ in many ways from those of a wild forest. Unlike a natural seedling, an urban planted tree needs water from us. The older it is when planted, the more summers are required for watering for a tree to be successful. A young city tree requires directional pruning to stay out of power lines and buildings. In all forests, a tree's death benefits many species. However, in the urban forest, there is far more than nutrient cycling to consider. The balance between habitat for trees and the ramifications of their presence in the urban setting is a dynamic and challenging proposition, especially with something so dramatically visible to the public.
235,000 street trees, 1.2 million park trees. Essentially, an organization like Portland Parks and Rec Urban Forestry Division, we have to look at the trees as a whole. Limited resources, and rather than focus on one individual tree, we have to focus on everything.
Portland's unique in that even while our population increases, so does our urban forest canopy. Usually you find in cities of this size where there is development going on, you see a decrease in the urban forest canopy. But here it's the other way around, and that's because the city of Portland funds tree planting efforts, funds tree healthcare efforts as well. And so compared to other cities around the country, Portland's investment in the urban forest is a recognition that these are assets that belong to the entire community and should be financed as such. Trees are green infrastructure that provide a lot of the same benefits that other infrastructure do, and Portland is recognizing that more and more.
It comes down to the social choices we make regarding our urban environment and our willingness to support such systems.
We have to think a lot in an urban situation about what's the best habitat for trees and what trees will do well in that constricted habitat that a city has to offer. So that also affects things like where we allow trees to be planted. And I say allow because in some situations the tree won't be successful, or it'll create safety hazards for the public. For example, if trees are planted too close to an intersection or in front of stop signs, that's going to be a real problem for people who are trying to drive their cars. So that's something that we have to think about all the time in the urban forest profession and in an urban environment that people don't really think about very much, especially when you think of a forest as being something off in the mountains where there aren't cars and intersections and streetlights and all those things that we need in the city.
As dwellers of the urban forest, we must match the energy of life that our urban forest provides us. Tree to citizen, trees to neighborhoods, and forest to city. As urban trees thrive, so do we. Through caring for and renewing the urban forest, we renew ourselves and leave a living legacy for generations to come.